Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories Podcast, People Helping People. I'm Shara Goswick, your host. My guest today is Angela Dinsmoor. Angela started Grey Whiskers, which is a dog grooming service for elderly dogs. She goes into homes and she doesn't just go and groom and leave. Her process is pretty involved. She takes her time and listens to the pet owner. She wants to know as much as she can about the dog because she wants the dog to feel comfortable and safe with her. I love what she's doing. I think this is such a special thing. When you've had a dog, especially when you've had an elderly dog, you know how different you have to treat them as they get older. And I just think she's doing a great job. I love this. She's got great plans for what she's doing. She's working on training people to do what she does. This was a great conversation. If you are a pet lover, you need to listen to this. And if you're definitely in the Denver area and you need her services, please reach out to her. Go to her website and look at the services she offers. She does offer a newsletter to anybody, so that might be helpful to you. But I loved this conversation, and I thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being a guest. Like I said, I really am excited to talk to you because I think your job is really cool. We are big dog lovers in our family, and we've had 4 dogs, I think, so far, but we have a 3-year-old golden retriever right now. And then we had a boxer lab mix who died a couple of years ago, or last year. He was almost 16. So I
Oh,
know about those older dogs. It's hard when they get older, and um yeah, it was rough. But tell everybody what you do and how you even got started doing this. I just think it's so cool. It's so special.
that could take up the whole podcast by itself, so don't say I didn't warn you.
No, that's
Uh,
good. That's good.
so I'm the founder of Grey Whiskers, and the mission of the business is to improve the lives of as many senior dogs as I possibly can, and the lives of the people who love and take care of them.
Yeah.
So I got into that probably when I saw my first dog getting older. I noticed that she was just entering this super sweet phase of her life
Mm.
that I used to tell her, "Every day you wake up, you're cuter. I don't know how you do it, but you just get more precious every day when you get up." And so I really developed a connection with her specifically, and then that just sort of catapulted me into caring for other people's senior dogs. But before that,
Yeah.
even I'm a gerontologist.
Okay.
So back when I went to college, if they had had a gerontology degree for pets, I probably would have done that,
Yeah.
but that wasn't an option. I'm hoping for
Yeah.
future generations that may change. But so I worked with senior citizens and I worked in the nursing home industry for a
Mm.
handful of years before I realized I would really rather work with animals. Many of us who work in the
Yeah.
animal industry, that's how we started.
Yeah.
And I've done a couple of different things throughout my career, but they all culminated in me being able to provide geriatric services for old dogs. And it's
Yeah.
been such a neat crossover of my experience. I used to groom young dogs, and I was a certified massage therapist for dogs of all ages, although I worked mostly
Oh,
with older
wow.
ones. And I
Yeah.
worked with dogs who were old and like recovering from chronic medical or dealing with chronic medical issues or recovering from surgeries and stuff like that. So I dealt a lot with old dogs even then. And
Yeah.
then being able to put them together into this geriatric grooming service and the business of Grey Whiskers has just been like a perfect fit for me.
That is awesome. Was there something that you noticed when you started working with older dogs? Maybe something that owners need to be aware of, or we can do differently, something maybe we just hadn't paid attention to?
There's a lot of things, but the one thing I'll say is that it's a good idea to have your dog examined by a veterinarian every 6 months.
Okay.
And, the standards for young dogs are once a year.
Yeah.
And then as the dog gets older, they recommend every 6 months. And the reason for that is not a money grab. There's a lot of things. The aging process in dogs, as we might be able to guess, is pretty accelerated compared to
Right.
humans. So things happen very quickly. They happen in a matter of a couple of months. They sometimes happen in a matter of a couple of weeks. So it's a really
Yeah.
good idea to stay on top of that and get regular veterinary checks. And the other thing that I would like to advocate for most besides that is monitoring for pain. There are a lot of dogs who are in pain and we can't tell because they're so good at hiding the signs of
Right.
pain. And I think that being able to monitor that and keep them comfortable is the one of the most important things we can do to improve quality of life for our old dogs.
Yeah.
And so I
Is
highly
that
advocate.
something that the vet can monitor, or like how do we know if they don't show it? How do we know?
Some vets are more proactive in helping you determine if there are signs of pain and or not.
Yeah.
But it's safe to assume that pretty much every dog who is a senior has at least some dental pain, some gum pain,
Mm.
because so many dogs have dental disease and then so many have arthritis. I think the statistic is something like 80% of dogs over
Oh,
8 have
wow.
arthritis. In some
Yeah.
form or fashion, it might be a minor form that doesn't need to be treated. But I think, if you talk to your vet about behavior changes, because pain can manifest obviously in things like limping or yelping, but it can be way more subtle. It can be like, my dog doesn't eat anymore, or he's not eating as well, or he's dropping food out of his mouth, signs of mouth
Yeah.
pain, and he's having trouble getting up and he's hesitant to do the stairs or jump on the furniture. So I think the important way to determine if your dog is in pain or not is to have an open dialogue with your veterinarian and
Yeah.
also to be a good observer of your pet
Yeah.
because your dog may be showing you little tiny signs and you just don't you think maybe it's old age, but a lot of times
Right.
pain is not a symptom of old age and it can be managed. So I would say
Yeah.
learn to become an observer of your dog's well-being as well.
Yeah. That when our dog that passed away last year, we probably should have put him down. He passed away, but we probably should have put him down sooner. He was such a big part of our family that we were having such a difficult time with that. And so I think I would do things now differently with our current dog, but it's so
Yeah.
hard. They are like family members, you
It
know?
is really hard. We adopt seniors in our family, so
Oh, wow.
we've adopted 9 dogs in our lives together, and we fostered 1, my husband and I,
Yeah.
and 6 of them have been seniors. 7, if you count the foster,
Wow.
have been seniors. So we've been there. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's a really tricky thing because you have that connection with your dog that goes so far
Mhm.
back, and it's really hard just emotionally to let them
Yeah.
go. But I think one of the important things to remember is that we have it's like a blessing and a curse, right? We have the ability to be able to take pain away from them and take suffering
Right.
away from them in a way that we don't for human beings. And I
Yeah.
think it's letting go is the most difficult thing you do. I have the same problem even if we've only had a dog for a year,
Yeah.
but letting them go is really hard, but it's a kindness to be able to let them go, even if
Right.
it's a couple of days too soon or a couple of weeks too soon, just
Right.
so that they're not miserable at the end. So,
Yeah.
we've all been there. I've done that myself. Every time I think, "I can't do this again. I don't wanna lose this dog when my life won't be
Right.
the same." And my life never is the same, but I always feel like I learned so much from the dog that we have. They
Yeah.
teach me so much. They leave so much with me in my heart that I feel like even though they're
Sure.
not physically with me, I still
Yeah.
hold a piece of them in my heart, so
Oh yeah. Our Duke was his name, and my husband did a rose garden for him in the backyard. And so when I mow
oh,
around it, I'm always, I love you, Duke. I talk to him while I'm
that's
mowing around
sweet,
it.
and that's a perfect way to be able to
Yeah.
do that if you're able to have your pet in your yard with you or, I have ashes. I always have, a necklace with ashes with me, and I
Yeah.
keep 1 collar from each dog. We're getting kind of a
Hmm.
big pile of things,
I
I'm not
bet.
gonna lie, but but I wouldn't have it any other way, but each person sort of finds their way to memorialize their pet, I feel
Yeah.
like, and then I always look at it as a chance to, when I'm grieving for a dog, I kinda let myself fall apart at the seams,
Yeah.
and then I pick myself back up and think that that dog I just lost, whoever it may have been, wouldn't really want me to be unhappy,
Sure.
and because I have a special skill set, it's really nice to be able to go out and rescue someone else and give them a good
Yeah.
last whatever that time period is. So,
Yeah.
we each come up with our own ways to memorialize pets.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't necessarily advocating old dogs as a way to recover from
Right.
losing an old dog, but it is my particular way of handling
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Well, tell everybody what is the process like? Someone contacts you and they have an older pet and they want your help. What exactly is the process? Because it's not just you just go over and give them a bath. There's a long It's like pretty
Right.
involved. So tell everybody
Right.
what you do.
It is pretty involved. So I offer geriatric specialized house call grooming services in Denver. That's a big
Yeah.
mouthful, but it basically means that I
Yeah.
groom old dogs in their own homes in
Yeah.
Denver. And so I specialize in dogs who are too old, sick, or confused to go to grooming salons anymore. The ones who
Mm.
are not doing well with the grooming process as a whole, I focus on dogs who have been fired from the groomer by the
Yeah.
actual grooming salon, or for dogs who are struggling after they've been groomed, that they're not recovering, like they can't walk, they won't eat, they're sleeping, they're in pain, they have to have a vet visit to sort of mitigate the after effects of a grooming in the salon. And so over the years, I've kind of honed the process in, and I'm actually writing a geriatric dog grooming certification course right
Oh,
now.
cool.
Just finished the course and we're getting ready to put it into formatting and everything. So that's going to be hopefully released this year to teach other groomers to do what I do, because
Yeah.
I have come up with this method that I've been doing for years, and I've kind of winnowed it down to what I feel like is the perfect solution. But I show
Sure.
up and assess the dog, and I take medical information from each client, including sometimes medications, so that I know like what the dog is dealing with on a daily basis. I get a lot
Mhm.
of background information about how's your dog doing on a daily basis? Does he have trouble with stairs? Does he have trouble when you try to handle his mouth? Does he not like to be restrained? Is he wandering at night? Is he sleeping through the night? All of these little questions that I ask that help me sort of create a picture of how, I don't want to say debilitated the dog is, but how much the dog is dealing with age changes.
Yeah.
And then I formulate a grooming process for each dog based on what I get from the clients. And that grooming process, I think a big part of it is that I've learned to be really flexible. So what
Yeah.
works one time may not work the next time.
Sure.
And what works earlier in the groom doesn't necessarily work later in the groom either. So I have to really be flexible, and I do like my clients to be with me so that they can help keep their dogs comfortable, especially for dogs with dementia or
Yeah.
advanced medical conditions that makes them happier.
Sure. Yeah.
And for those people who listen to your podcast who don't live in my area, I write a newsletter, and in my
Okay.
newsletter archive, there's a whole series of articles about how to prepare your dog for a groom, how to take care of your dog after the groom, and how to communicate with your groomer. And if you don't have a groomer and there's not a specialized me in your area, for example,
Yeah.
how to choose a groomer and talk to them about what's going on with your dog. So I try
Wow.
really hard to equip people all over the country, because this is a huge need and it's not
Mhm.
something that's really being serviced right now. So trying to change that. But in the meantime, I've tried to write some articles that will help people kind of suss
That's
that out in their
awesome.
towns.
Yeah. Do you have a story of a pet, probably lots of them, that just really was heartwarming?
Oh gosh, you're right. Totally lots of them. And I think one of the unique things, and the reason I'm good at what I do, is because I kind of fall in love with everybody. So I always have like,
Yes.
um, well, the first, I'll tell you two, because I think they're both telling in a different way. But the first one was, the reason I started Grey Whiskers is because I was having conversation with a friend of mine. We were having coffee, and she had a 16-year-old Shih Tzu who had passed out at the groomer.
Oh,
And
wow.
so just over coffee, my friend, and this was before I groomed senior dogs. So at the time I owned my business still, but I was doing massage. So I was still doing certified animal massage. And my friend told me that her dog, whose name was Ruby and was 16, had passed out at the groomer. She had heart problems.
Oh,
So as I was talking to my friend, I'm like, I just feel like we can do better. I feel like I haven't groomed in a few years, but I groomed for many, many years, and I knew what I was doing, and I had this knowledge of gerontology and the massage school. While massage sounds like kind of a fluffy thing, I learned a lot of anatomy and physiology and pathology in that
yeah.
course, in those courses. So I had kind of a special skill set already, I knew. So I asked my friend if she would be willing to let me try grooming her at home and see if I could make the process easier for Ruby to tolerate. She said yes, and that went really well. And Ruby lived another almost 3 years,
Oh,
and she
wow.
never had another incident like that while on my grooming table and in
Oh,
my
my
care. So I was
goodness.
able to completely change that for her. She was medicated, obviously, she was seeing a cardiologist, but
Yeah.
it really meant a lot to me, and it proved that there was definitely something there,
Sure.
as far as a need in the community that I could serve specifically. And then the second story that I think is probably the most touching to me is a little dog who unfortunately just passed a couple days ago. So forgive me if I get a little teary, but
Yeah.
her name was Liza. She's I want to say she's maybe 15-year-old, 16-year-old
Wow.
miniature poodle. I work with quite elderly dogs, as you can tell.
Yeah.
Um, her owner contacted me because she was having what they called panic seizures at the groomer.
Mm.
And I don't know that that's actually a thing. I'm not really sure what the science is on that. It depends
Yeah.
on who I ask. But she had seizures the last time she had been to the groomer, and actually she started having them later at the vets as well. So it's kind
Mm.
of a thing with her when she got too panicky, and care situations were difficult for her. So I went over to see Liza, and she was tiny. I swear she was like 9 pounds, you know, if that. And I just took it really slow with her, and I gave her lots of breaks, and I worked within her tolerance level. And we got maybe a third of the groom done because she wouldn't
Yeah.
tolerate the rest of it. So I came back a second time, and then I got a little bit more of the groom done, and it took me 3 times, but
Wow.
finally I got Liza groomed all the way through. And it was just a lot of patience on my part, but working with her, watching her stress levels, learning to connect with her so that she trusted me and I understood
Mm.
what her limits were. We were able
Yeah.
to get her groomed after that in 1-hour segments because she was so tiny. But
Yeah.
because I had taken the time to build that trust with the dog who had previously been panicking at the grooming salon, I think that's another one that and I see cases like, both of those on a regular
Mhm.
basis, and that sort of those 2 examples are some of the most meaningful work I do in those kinds of areas.
Yeah, I know that their owners are so appreciative because, like I said, when you've had a dog for that long, they do become part of your family and you
They
want
do.
them taken. I know they're pets, but you want them taken care of well. And so I know it means a lot to the people that own those puppies. How can we make our senior dogs more comfortable? You talked about how we need to have them checked out at the vet more often and just being aware of their pain, but how
Mhm.
can we make them more comfortable and less anxious as they get older?
As far as let's see, as far as more comfortable goes, that I would say make modifications to your home. If your dog can't jump up on the furniture anymore, but still really loves being with you, sometimes how that manifests is instead of your dog being with you on the couch, maybe you don't necessarily realize it, but he can't jump on the couch anymore.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden he starts laying in a bed behind the couch if your couch is in the middle of the room or in the corner of the room. And you don't
Right.
really know why, but you assume it's a preference of his, but it might not be. It might be because he can't get on the couch anymore and he needs a little help. So
Yeah.
either a ramp or if he's small enough that you can lift him up there and make sure, of course, that he's safe to get back down or you
Yeah.
help him down. Training a dog to a ramp is not super difficult, even a senior, because you
Mhm.
can just bait them up with treats every time they get
Yeah.
up and then bait them down and stop them from jumping and then bait them down. Make
Sure.
sure they have comfortable beds. The exception to that, I would say, is that all dogs should have comfortable beds, at least one like orthopedic bed. However, many very large dogs like Newfoundlands, Great Pyrenees, Bernese Mountain
Mhm.
Dogs, we have a lot of those in Colorado. They don't like to lay, and even Labs and Golden Retrievers, they don't like to
Yeah.
lay on beds because the floors are cooler. And there's
Oh,
some
yeah.
evidence that suggests that lying on the floor, on a hard floor, creates both a cool spot to lay to comfort the joints and
Mhm.
also a little bit of much needed pressure on painful joints. So
Yeah.
to some extent, it depends on your particular dog, but I can guarantee you that if a Maltese is lying on the hard floor, that he probably would prefer to have a bed in that
Yeah.
circumstance. Moving
Yeah.
food in water bowls so that your dog doesn't have to walk so far to get to them,
Yeah.
making sure you have water in the bedroom overnight,
Mm.
taking short walks, multiple short walks per day is really helpful. And go at his pace. I know that's really hard. We all live busy lives. Everybody's got an
Yeah.
agenda. We've all got a million things we need to do in our day. but a dog gains as much enrichment from 10 minutes of sniffing as they get from an hour of walking. And so
Right.
if you can really take the time to slow down and allow your dog to sniff that flower bush for like a solid 5 minutes, it's good for both your mental state. Once you get over the hump of like, oh my gosh, I have so
Yes.
much to do, it's good for
Yeah.
your mental state. And it's also really good for the dogs, of course. And then I think one of the things we don't necessarily think about is protecting your elderly dog from um, too much activity in terms of like a younger dog pouncing on them
Mm,
or children who are a little too rough with them, perhaps.
yeah.
Cases of snappiness in older dogs is often related to things like anticipating pain when a small child
Yeah.
or another pet comes to them. So
Yeah.
they bite sometimes to protect themselves. So managing your dog so that other people and animals can't create too much discomfort for him is really nice.
Yeah.
And did I already say blocking stairs? Because blocking stairs is
No,
really
but that's a good
important.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, up and down, because dogs who have vision problems, as they get older don't necessarily see stairs, and if they're also
Sure.
deaf, they're and confused because a lot of dogs have dementia.
Yeah.
I think blocking the top and the bottom of the staircase is super important.
That's a good idea. What would you suggest? And I know this is not part of grooming or older dogs, but um, as a dog is getting older, if we wanted to get another dog, what age ish do you suggest doing that? When, like, our dog is 3, should we get
Mhm.
one soon? Should we wait? I know they say the average age for golden retrievers is about 12. I'm really hoping it's longer than that. But, what is a good age to introduce a new dog into our home?
Um, well, first of all, as a digression to your question, I've seen 17-year-old golden retrievers.
Oh, that makes me so
I've
happy.
seen several, yeah. So it's not common, but since
Right.
I think a dog with a really good life who's been well
Yeah.
cared for has a better chance of that than others. Just make sure you get those vet visits.
Yeah.
Um, I
I've told her
think
she's not allowed to ever die. So
Yes, I've had all
that's
of
just
those
it.
conversations with my dogs, and our dogs live to be quite old, so I
Yeah.
think it's sort of working, but at the
Right.
same time, I always have to remember to let them off the hook because I will survive without them, even though I don't wanna
Right.
survive
I
without them, so that's
know.
important too.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of the age you should get another dog, it really depends on the dog. If your dog, likes other dogs as an elderly dog, then I think it's
Yeah.
okay to bring in another dog. If your dog is kind of calm, cool, and collected. As an example, our dog Uma, she's our current. We call her the OG 2.0 because she's like the first dog that we adopted in our second generation of dogs.
Oh, yeah.
And she's the last dog we adopted young, so we adopted her at a year. And
Oh,
at the
wow.
same time, essentially at the same time, we got her a dog because we thought she was
Right.
lonely. I think it turns out we were right. That's not always the case, but she had a little bit of isolation anxiety, like she didn't like to be left alone. She didn't really
Yeah.
necessarily care who was with her, but she wanted someone with her.
Right.
So we got her. We tried to get a 10-year-old dog, one who was probably not long for the world left in the shelter.
Mm.
So we brought her home, and turns out she was probably 7 or 8. So she lived. That was Esther. Esther lived with Uma for 8 years
Oh,
before she
wow.
finally passed away at 16, and at what we think was 16.
Yeah.
And Uma grieved her terribly. Uma really,
Oh,
really missed
yeah.
her. And so we had Uma just by herself for a little while. And then all the old dogs we adopt find us in some way, shape, or form. So then the next dog to find us was Groot. And we weren't necessarily looking for another dog, but Groot was 12. And Uma did really well with Groot. And then we
Yeah.
adopted Radar at the same time. He was 16. And the three of them lived together until Groot and Radar died. And then Uma was lonely. So we've
Yeah.
gotten another dog. And I think she enjoys the companionship of another dog, no matter her age, or she likes
Yeah.
older dogs, but she also likes younger dogs. So I feel like if your dog likes other dogs well and tolerates them well, then you don't necessarily need to worry about the age range that you deal with.
Okay.
If your dog has always been a solitary dog and all of a sudden you're like, we should get another dog because this one's getting older and I'm worried about what I hear many times is I don't want to be without a dog.
Right.
So we need to get another dog now so that our current dog will teach the new dog how to behave.
Yeah.
and then we will not be left without a dog.
Yeah.
That's a very common experience, and some older dogs, it gives them a bit of a puppyish behavior back.
Yeah.
So it works like a charm in some cases. I think it's harder for dogs with dementia and
Mhm.
sensory deprivation, like loss of hearing and sight, to adjust to a younger, newer dog than it
Sure.
is for a dog who still, even though they may be older, still sees well, still hears well. And if your younger dog is amenable to another dog, they definitely do, like Uma and Esther together did great for all that time, even though Uma was a year and Esther was 7 or 8. They
Yeah.
did fantastic with each other, so I think there's always value if your dog appreciates the company of another dog in
Yeah, she
adding a dog,
loves to
no
play
matter.
still. We
See, I
got
think that's a
her
good sign.
Yeah, we got her when Duke was, um, 14, I guess, because we didn't think he was gonna live,
Right.
much longer, and he
Yeah.
ended up living 2 more years.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, so he wasn't thrilled that she was there at that point,
Yeah.
he tolerated
Mhm.
her, but whenever he died, she definitely was sad and for a week would go I'm like, we'd go outside and she would be
Yeah.
on a hunt. You could tell she was looking for him. Um,
Um,
and we did say the same thing like what you were saying, we don't wanna
yeah,
be without a dog, and I'm
super
glad
common.
that we got her, and we got that breed because I have 2 grandkids, and I wanted a dog that I knew I was not gonna have to worry about, that would be gentle as they're
Right.
growing up, and they are I mean, she's just been a dream for these girls, so
Yeah.
that's why we got her. We'll probably get another one like her, but, I just wondered when, because 'cause we've talked about it, we haven't been real serious about it, but,
Your
uh
dog sounds social, and she's 3, so she's kind of like, pretty much grown up at this point. Golden
Right.
retrievers stay young for a while, so
Yeah.
she's getting there on the grown up phase, and I think that, in a case like yours specifically, it sounds like she'd be great with another dog whenever you
Yeah.
decide that you're ready, and it might give her some companionship. I feel like in some cases, um, adding a new dog to the family can kinda take the pressure off of your old dog so that they know, "Look, they're
Sure.
okay. My people will be okay if
Sure.
I am not the one holding them up anymore. We've got 2 of
Yeah.
us, and they won't be alone when I die." So I do think there's some of that to it as well. And it sounds like your dog is
Absolutely.
pretty in tune with everything in your
She's
family, so I
yeah,
wouldn't be surprised.
it's ridiculous. She is spoiled. Just it's embarrassing.
Good.
I used to make fun of people who act like I act now. And so I
Yeah.
guess that's what I get.
Well, and I think the position of dogs in our families has changed, right? I
Yeah,
mean, a lot more people
definitely.
don't have kids, and a lot more people have chosen to adopt dogs once their kids are out of the house.
Yeah,
And a lot of people, like most of us adopt kids, or most families adopt kids or adopt dogs when they have kids currently in the house. But
sure.
that dynamic is also changing. I think there are more
Yeah.
young people without kids adopting than there used to be, and there's also more older people adopting. So it's
I
not a
think
surprise that they
definitely
become a part of the
yeah.
family. Yeah.
For us, we're almost empty nesters. We have 2 kids that don't live here anymore, and then our youngest son lives with us, but he's special needs, so we're sort
Mhm.
of empty nesters. And I think that's
Yeah.
part of it is, all our kids are grown. Nobody wants to hang out with us anymore, so
Right, and
we
empty
we love
nest
our
the
dog.
yeah, empty nest syndrome is difficult, so bringing in a pet,
Yeah.
is a really good way to I don't it's not, a way of coping. It is a way of coping, but just a way to help you move forward, to kind of shift the focus of your life and give you something else to be excited about, and
Yeah,
somewhere to put all that love and care, right? Because so many of us, especially
absolutely.
women, we're caregivers. That's what we're kind of
Yeah,
like hardwired for that. So
yeah,
it's nice to have somewhere to put that love. So I think that animals, as a result of that, are becoming a new part of the family. They're less like pet status,
yeah,
so to speak, and more like legit family members when it comes
yes,
to our love for them, and we spend a lot more money on our pets than we used to,
yeah,
both in things like toys and things like veterinary care.
right.
So I think the market shows how those changes are manifesting.
Yeah. Yeah, we love her so much, it's ridiculous. My husband he rolls his eyes at me. He's like, "How many times a day do you hug her and kiss her and tell her you love her?" I'm like, "I don't know.
There's always room for
Too
one more time.
many."
Yeah, you can
Too
always
It's
do at least one more,
embarrassing.
I don't know.
It is embarrassing. Well, what advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about adopting a senior dog? What is something they need to think about before they do that?
The first thing I would say is the most important thing for me, which is don't hesitate or be afraid. Um, a senior dog they have some really nice perks. They don't have to go take, like 10-mile hikes on the weekends
Sure.
and 3-mile runs during the day. You don't have to hire a trainer for them most times. They
Yeah.
kind of come with their personalities already basically installed, and it's a discovery process. We Every time we adopt a senior dog, we find some really funny things that, like, they have their own little quirks or preferences, so that's kind of fun. I think the thing you want to make sure is that it's while senior dogs are a lot of times when you first adopt them, there's no difference between a senior dog and a younger dog. If you get like an 8-year-old, but if you're going to get a
Yeah.
12-year-old or a 14-year-old, then it's a little more different. You want to make sure you have a little bit of money set aside that you can deal with medical care, because there will be medical care towards the end.
Sure.
Learn some new skills like giving pills if you don't already know how to do that, if you've never had an old dog before. um, Invest in some things for your homes, like be prepared to, I should say, like the ramps and the gates, the baby gates,
Yeah.
and some good enrichment toys. And then just the chance to offer a senior dog a safe space is sometimes all they really need. When we adopted Radar, he was 16, and they were going to put him to sleep at the shelter, and we brought him into the house. There were already 2 dogs there. They were both
Right.
older dogs, but he came in as a 3rd dog. And he was a little spicy in the beginning because I think he hadn't necessarily had a home where he felt like he could trust people.
Right.
So old dogs come with a whole previous life that we don't understand. But if you
Mm.
give them a safe space to blossom, you will absolutely see some super cute and funny and lovable little things. And that
Yeah.
dog can bond to you just as strongly as a young dog does to a human, even though it's only been a couple of years or a year, or we had one
Sure.
dog that we only had for 2 weeks.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I think giving that dog a place to blossom and a safe space and a comfortable space, those are the 3 priorities that you should probably think about, and
Mhm.
then your dog will be just, I mean, amazing. It's an amazing
Yeah.
experience. I can't recommend it highly enough, obviously, because
Right.
we're veterans at it, but yeah.
Right. So, what is your dream for Grey Whiskers? I know you talked about doing the training course, and I know you have a digest that you
Yes,
produce. You got a
that's my
newsletter.
newsletter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is your dream for your
Gosh,
program?
that's a big question. Well, right now, I think the short-term dream is to continue the newsletter. I really want to work on educating as many people in the pet care industry, so that's professionals, as
Hmm.
well as pet parents, about the aging process. And I want to make the aging process in dogs and all animals a more normal part of the conversation, so that
Yeah.
it's not that when everybody's dog gets to be too old, they're, super sad. The whole thing is depressing. They're dreading it. They're miserable. I
Yeah.
want to offer people hope, and I want Gray Whiskers to be the place where they get the tools to do that.
Yeah.
So right now we have the newsletter. We're in the process of developing a community for pet parents, and for pet professionals too,
Hmm.
where everyone can come together without ego or judgment and learn everything they need to know in order to take care of their old dogs in the best ways possible. So that's
That's
like
awesome.
resources for great veterinarians, resources for mobile devices at home, and like management for the house in order to keep the dog safe,
Hmm.
learning about the aging process, learning how to talk to your veterinarian, all of the things, and support for each other. Because that's the other big thing, is I think many human beings who go through this process with their dogs and cats and other animals, they feel alone, and they
Yeah.
feel like a lot of the people around them don't necessarily get it.
Yeah.
And I want to change that so that they have. I would like to be the place as Gray Whiskers where they come together to have a conversation and find the support they need, both in terms of like emotional support and the chance to be able to celebrate an old dog's wins, because that's pretty big
Yeah.
too. And then the other piece of what we're doing is the certification that I mentioned earlier. So I want
Hmm.
to get more groomers certified to do what I do, because there's such a huge need, and there's going to be an even greater need the longer
Oh,
dogs live,
sure.
to be able to
Yeah.
provide provide services for them where they're well cared for in the grooming industry as well as other industries in the country for their needs as they age.
Yeah.
Um, my pie in the sky dream is I would like to be the place where everybody can come just to Grey Whiskers to find the resources and care
Yeah.
that they need,
Sure.
just because it would be easier if there was one centralized place where,
Yeah.
they can find whatever it is that they're looking for, whether that's like the great stroller or
Right.
some non-slip options for feet or the
Yeah.
best veterinarian or the best groomer, obviously, in your area.
Right. That's awesome. I love all of this. I just think it's so important. After having a senior dog, I think it's just
Right.
so important. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you want to tell me about?
Gosh, not that I can think of. I think, one thing I'll say is that senior dogs have so much to offer, and if we pay attention to what they're telling us, they do communicate quite well.
Mhm.
So if we listen to them and if we learn to read their smaller signals and their body language and just spend time enough observing them, they do
Yeah.
communicate quite well with us, and they have so much to offer. Their little personalities are unbeatable. So I think
Yeah.
that learning to communicate with your old dog would be one of the things I would say is really helpful.
Yeah. It's hard when that happens, but I think it is, like you said, so important. So,
Yes, it's very
well,
important. I'm happy to do this.
good. I can tell that you love it. And I appreciate people like you who love, what they do because what you're doing is important to every family that you're working with.
So
Thank you
much.
so much. I hope you
Thanks. It
enjoy
was
your day
great.
and I'll be in touch soon.
Okay, thanks for
Okay.
having me on. Take care,
Alrighty.
Sarah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.